Greetings fellas, this is the part 8, of What If Female Deku, Ascend Beyond Human Limitation, Chapter 48, Begin. The camp raid. The hero course students gathered in front of the teachers and hired heroes. Alright everybody. We'll be playing Capture the Flag tonight. Mandely announced. Treat your opponents like you would in a villain fight. This is supposed to be a simulation of what mass villain attacks are like. The students nodded. Right. The classes split up and walked into the forest to their headquarters. Toga split off from the main group and went to scout on her own. Convenient. When she was sure she was alone, Toga pulled out a phone. Hey. Ready when you are. Izuka smiled and closed the phone. She turned around to stand with the entire vanguard, minus Hatsum, Tamura, and Kurogiri. You ready to cause chaos? Tetsutetsu breathed in. I can smell them. My classmates. Filthy. Dabi flexed his hands. Izuka. If you would like to go meet up with Toga, I can take point. That would be great. You and Twice go. Spinner smiled. I'll go with Stain. Of course you will. Stain smiled. Well. We wish to kill some false heroes tonight. Watch out for Mirko. Got it. Then that leaves me and Compress. Magn said with glee. Let's go, my little crumpet. Compress pulled Magn close. Alright everybody. See you on the other side. The vanguard leapt down into the forest. Mineta walked into a small clearing to see his girlfriend, Shina Mayuko, smiling at him. Hey Minoru, what are you doing way out here? The classes are that way. The midget pointed east. I know silly. This is where we can't be seen. The girl moved closer to Mineta and went to her knees. Mineta shuddered. It's finally happening. Minoru lay back against a tree. Toga smirked and moved in to kiss him. Minoru closed his eyes and puckered his lips. Just a little more. But the kiss never came. Minoru opened his eyes to see his girlfriend standing in the center of the clearing yet again. He looked down to see that he had been tied to the tree. What is this? Oh come on. Toga spat. Do you really think that any girl would be interested in you? Mineta's eyes went wide. Why you mean that I've been playing you this entire time? Like the cheap kazoo you are. A rustling came from the grass. Izuka, in her Yumi disguise, walked into the clearing. Toga smiled. Hey. Mineta wept tears of joy. Yumi. Thank God. This girl is crazy. Izuka smirked. Oh I know. She took off her wig. So am I. Oh. No no no. 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 Toga's disguise melted away, leaving her naked. Izuka handed her a bag with her clothes inside. Thanks babe. But I'll be using the disguise again. First, how about we deal with this guy? Mineta shivered as the two villains approached. The scream he let out was loud enough that everybody in the camp heard it plain as day. The camp raid had begun. Aizawa dashed out of the instructor's cabin to see half of the forest wreathed in flames. What in the TSK eraser? Letting your kids do something like this without supervision? Aizawa whirled around to see Dabi smiling at him. You. Ah yes. Me. And Stain. And Izuka. Oh yeah, and the rest of our vanguard. There's what? 10 of us? 10? If they're as strong as him, this is bad. Vlad King rushed out of the cabin and punched Dabi. The villain's form rippled, and he began dripping mud. Ah. Before I go you two. There's somebody who has some business here. A cloaked figure dashed out of the burning woods. Their punch hit Aizawa and knocked him back into the cabin. Oof. Vlad glared at the villain. And who might you be? Never mind, it doesn't matter. Vlad struck, with a fist made of blood. The villain caught it with one hand. Tasty. Tetsutetsu pulled down his hood. Vlad King went wide-eyed. Inside, he felt a bit of him die. But I was saved. Ironically, the villains are the heroes of this story. Tetsutetsu's hair turned blood red. His body hardened into steel. So now, hero. Face the monster that you've created. Vlad King took on a fighting stance. I will defeat you. I have a duty to protect my students. Tetsutetsu growled. Is that so? Vlad shuddered as a menacing aura burst out of the boy. Where were you when I needed protection? Oh yeah. I forgot. Vlad barely blocked Tetsutetsu as he rushed forward. You were the one I needed to be protected from. Mandalay saw the flames engulf the forest. Endeavor and Best, Genist were at her side, along with Tiger and Pixie Bob. What in the helloo, heroes? Stain and Spinner rocketed out of the forest, katanas drawn. Ready to spill some blood? The heroes and villains rushed forward into a deadly dance. Pixie Bob shouted to Mandalay. Mandalay. Kota went into the woods an hour ago. Mandalay swore. I'll go find him. You fight these guys. The hero ran into the forest in search of her niece. Students screamed all around Katsuki as the forest went up in flames. A voice came from overhead. Ah. Hello little ones. Mr. Compress and Magn stood atop a large boulder. Magn held the unconscious form of Ru in her arms. Bakugo lunged forward. No. I won't let you. Expand Compress through a marble, which turned into a large boulder that Katsuki destroyed. The boulder exploded into a cloud of dust. When Bakugo regained his sense of sight, Compress, Magn, and Ru were gone. Shit. Aizawa dodged an attack from Tetsutetsu. What the hell happened to this kid? Vlad shuddered as he watched Tetsutetsu fight Aizawa without slowing. What have I done? Tetsutetsu locked fists with Vlad King. The blood hero grunted as the young villain began overpowering him. Eraser. Little help? Aizawa erased Tetsutetsu's quirk. The boy smiled as a punch from Vlad actually did damage. Huh. You really do have cool quirks. Tetsutetsu grinned. But a good fighter shouldn't rely on them too much. Aizawa ran forward with his capture tape and attempted to snag the boy. Tetsutetsu ducked underneath the attack and hit Aizawa with an open palm. Aizawa gasped as everything seemed to slow down. Time regained its proper speed, and Aizawa was sent flying back. What the hell was that? Tetsutetsu slowly straightened out. Cool, right? Like I said. A good fighter doesn't rely on their quirk. You made the mistake of thinking that I did. Vlad took a defensive stance. Aizawa got to his feet and dashed to Vlad's side. I think we need to make a tactical retreat, Vlad. Are you sure? Aizawa nodded. That hit he landed broke one of my ribs. Whatever fighting style he's using is one I've never seen before. A ringing came from Tetsutetsu's pocket. Hello? Is he taking a phone call in the middle of let's just get out of here? Tetsutetsu smiled. All right. Nice job you two. Did you get the angry Pomeranian as well? Aizawa stopped. They're after my students. Ru. Vlad. Get to Mandalay. Tell her that the students are the target. Go. Vlad looked at Aizawa. But what about you? I'll be fine. Just go. Vlad nodded and ran into the forest. Aizawa ran into the forest. Tetsutetsu grinned as the heroes escaped. Yeah. They heard. They're heading Izuka's way. Kota sat on a rocky outcropping. She saw the blue flames that were consuming the forest. What is going on? Kota? Kota turned around to see Izuka Midoriya. Wait, how do you know my name? Izuka shook her head. Sorry for scaring you. I know a killer like me would make anybody scared. Kota looked at Izuka, she seemed very familiar. Onichan? Why, you're Izuka Midoriya. Izuka smiled and sat down next to the girl. Yeah. I am. Kota studied the villain's face for a while. I don't get it. I'm supposed to be scared of you. Andy told me to be. But I'm not. Izuka raised an eyebrow. Is that strange? Kota nodded. Yeah. Andy is right all the time. Izuka smiled. Your Andy is one of the few heroes I still like. She suspected me from the moment she saw me. And she confronted me. Do you know why? Kota shook her head. No. Why? It's because she has you. Izuka smiled. She knows that she can make it out of any battle, because you'll be there when she gets back. She has to make it back. She wants to put you first, to protect you. Always. It was the same for your parents. The water hose heroes, right? They went into their final battle, with the sole aim of protecting you. Kota began tearing up. They did that for me? Auntie too. Izuka nodded. Yes, she really loves you, you know. Kota wiped the tears from her eyes. Yeah. I know. Please. Don't hurt them, okay? Izuka nodded and ruffled the little girl's hair. Don't worry. As I said. They are heroes that I still respect. Now. Speaking of your auntie. Kota? That would be her. So I'll go now. Onichan. Izuka turned to Kota. Yes? Kota gave her a peck on the cheek. Be careful. I will. Izuka stood up, and leapt into the forest. Kota? Kota took a deep breath. I'm up here, auntie. Mandalay leapt up onto the outcropping. Oh Kota. Are you okay? Kota hugged Mandalay tightly. Yes. Is there anything I can help with, auntie? Mandalay shook her head. Unless you want to get water from the river to put the forest out. No. I can't put the forest out. Mandalay looked at her. You really want to? I can use my quirk, auntie. I'll do it for Mama and Papa. Mandalay felt herself tearing up. All right then, Kota. Let's go. The little girl climbed atop her aunt's shoulders. The two began making their way to the burning part of the forest. Aizawa dashed through the forest. I must protect them. After a few minutes, he came across a small group of students. Mr. Aizawa. It was Bakugo, Kirishima, Mina, Todoroki, Uraraka, Jiro, Asui, and Kaminari. What are you kids doing running away from the camp? Bakugo pointed to the treetops. They have Ru. Aizawa swore. That's not. Oh yes. It definitely isn't good, is it? The group turned to see a dark figure on the treetops. The voice was one that they all knew quite well. Izuka. Bakugo breathed. Izuka chuckled. Yes, it is me. Izuka Midoriya. Deku. Ghost, Patchwork Bunny. At your service. Cut the crap. Bakugo said. Why are you taking my friend? Friend? Izuka hopped down and revealed herself fully. Last I knew, the great Katsuki Bakugo had no need for friends. Bakugo shuddered. Aizawa stepped between them. You two may have a history, but Bakugo is still my student. As a hero, it is my job to protect him. To protect him? Izuka smirked, like you protected Tetsutetsu? Aizawa flinched. That was an error on my part. One day I will make it up to him. Izuka smiled. Okay, hero. Then let's dance. Izuka leapt forward. Aizawa blocked her strike with his scarf. Damn. Still strong. Izuka winked. And just a bit smarter. The scarred girl grabbed the scarf and whirled around, sending Aizawa flying. The hero landed on his feet and leapt back at her. Both met in the air. Their attacks missing each other. To the others, they were just a blur. A rustling came from the bushes. Nezu and Yumi emerged into the clearing. Principal Nezu? The students went wide-eyed. Nezu regarded the fight with calculating eyes. You students go find your captured friend. Yumi and I will assist Aizawa. I'll stay too. Jiro said. I'll only slow you down if I go. Are you sure? Bakugo asked. Go. Jiro said. Save Ru. The students ran into the forest in pursuit of Magna and Compress. Jiro and Nezu turned to the fight, where Aizawa and Izuka had both leapt back. Now Miss Yumi. The clone of Izuka ran forward to attack. Izuka blocked the strikes with ease. Ah. I see, Nezu. So you turn one of my own against me. Nezu kept a straight face. You cannot win this time, Ms. Midoriya. Izuka chuckled. Why? Because there's another who's as powerful as I am? You have nobody like that on your side. We have Mizumi, who seems to be doing quite fine. Izuka chuckled. Then you have miscalculated Nezu? The rodent smiled back. I assure you, I never miscalculate. Izuka punched Aizawa away from her and grabbed Yumi by the head. You see Nezu? You didn't think of one thing. Your mind saw me at the USJ while Yumi hair was in a being recorded. Jiro screamed as Izuka channeled power into her hand and squeezed, crushing the clone's head in her hand. The clone turned into mud and fell on the ground. Aizawa's eyes widened. Oh fuck. You see Nezu? We have an ally who can clone anything. So it was easy to infiltrate a, and speaking of, my friend Himiko Toga should be finishing up with Mineta right about now. She'll be attacking those students soon. I hope you're ready. Nezu growled. Did I let my memories of her mother distract me? I was blind to it the entire time. Jiro lunged forward. The girl who was normally quiet and contained had finally had enough. You played you at all. Izuka cackled and dodged Jiro's attack. Come now, Jiro. I helped prepare you. If anything, it's your own fault that you didn't realize. I can't believe you. Kyoka screamed. You acted like our friend. And now you're trying to kill us. Izuka dodged a punch from the student. Her eyes narrowed. She's about to do it, isn't she? I just... Kyoka brought her hands forward. A sound wave blasted from her palms, resonating with the surrounding area perfectly. The blast blew Izuka off of her feet. The trees behind her became matchsticks. Izuka stood up and dusted herself off. Well. You've got another one, Nezu? Kyoka looked down at her hands. What is this? Aizawa limped up to her. Your quirk evolved. Come on. With this we might be able to beat her. Alright. Kyoka turned her attention back to Izuka. You're going down. Don't push it. That new power of yours is powerful, but you could break yourself if you aren't careful. Kyoka growled. If I break myself, then who cares? I spend most of my life looking like I don't care, now I just have to put that to practice. Kyoka outstretched a hand, sending a shockwave outwards. Izuka leapt back and avoided it, scribbling furiously in a notebook. I see. So from what I can tell, this new power works on frequencies. Its power comes from the ability to magnify the frequencies thousands of times over and make them resonate with the surrounding area. Kyoka grit her teeth. Mr. Aizawa, I'm gonna boost you. Got it. Kyoka blasted a shockwave towards Izuka. Aizawa jumped forward and rode the wave, gaining speed. He landed a punch to Izuka's face. The girl recoiled a bit, but continued riding. You guys seriously are annoying. You can't wait for 1 minute? The scarred girl pocketed the book and leapt back into the fight. Bakugo and his friends dashed through the forest. Up ahead they could see the end of Compress's tailcoat flapping as he leapt through the treetops. We need to slow them down. Bakugo growled. Todoroki leapt forward and threw a fireball. It disrupted Compress just enough for them to see him clearly. Keep it up, Todoroki. I don't think so. Dobby leapt out of the forest, fire streaming from his hands. Long time no see, little heroes. To ya. Shoto breathed. Fight me, Shoto. Dobby grinned. You guys go. I'll handle him. Bakugo nodded. Right. Let's go, guys. Wait. I'm not leaving. Ochako said. But we need you to shit. Watch out. Bakugo shouted. Toga flew out of the forest. Her knife was aimed directly at Todoroki's chest. Ochako jumped in front of the blonde villain and grabbed her wrist, before twisting and dislocating her hand, forcing her to drop the knife. I said go. Get through. All right then. We'll need you and Kaminari, so. Bakugo said. Kirishima, you snag the pearls, when you get the chance. Okay. Okay, Karo. The students continued their pursuit of Compress, while Ochako and Shoto faced Dobby and Toga. Well, little heroes? Show us your blood. Chapter 49, Chain Evolutions. Author's note, ah. Okay. Chapter 49. I should answer some stuff. For one thing. This isn't gonna be what you think. There will be hero deaths. And I mean hero deaths because I have about 50 heroes to wipe out for the Camino incident. The top heroes kinda have to stay alive. I mean, there's something special planned for All Might and Mineta. You'll see. But there will be hero deaths. Not like major hero deaths. Maybe I could get rid of Camille Woods and Mount Lady. Let's just get into the chapter. It'll all work out in the end. Pixie Bob dodged a swipe from Stain, who leapt back as Endeavor sailed in on a wave of fire. The hero killer spun around and hurled a knife at Pixie Bob. The hero cartwheeled away, before sending a fist of earth towards Stain with her quirk. Damn. Pixie Bob swore as the hero killer dodged. He's good. Meanwhile, Tiger and Best Jeanist were fighting Spinner. The villain was countering every threat that Jeanist sent at him, while fighting with Tiger in close combat. Spinner swiped a blade across Tiger's face. The hero leaned back and felt the wind coming off of the blade as he watched it pass by. That could have been bad. Spinner grinned as Jeanist managed to ensnare one of his arms. Huh. Neat trick. The fibers were quickly sliced apart by his sword. You can't get me that easily though. Kota and Mandalay made it to the center of the burning forest. Are you ready? Ready, Auntie. Kota nodded. The girl brought her hands forward. I always told you that my quirk was weak. And there was no reason to use it. Mandalay's eyes went wide as Kota's arms began glowing light blue. The thing is, I just thought of them every time I used it. So I got better control so I could make it look weak. Water coalesced in Kota's open palms. She raised her hands up towards the sky. But now, I have something to protect too. Kota's body flashed. A massive ball of water appeared in the sky. It would cover the entire forest. So here it goes, Auntie. The ball of water popped. Rain began falling on the forest, quelling the raging flames that licked the trees. Kota shuddered and collapsed. Mandalay caught her niece in an instant, hugging her close. Thank you, Kota. She's been hiding hydrokinesis like that for so long. Incredible. Mandalay activated her quirk. All students and PRO heroes. The fire is out now. Fight on. Izuka flipped back as Kyoka sent another shockwave at her. As she landed, Aizawa ensnared her with his capture weapon. Izuka spun around and freed herself, before lunging at Jiro. The girl leapt back and sent another shockwave at her. Izuka dodged yet again. This time, Aizawa came in with a punch. Izuka caught the attack and hurled the hero back. Well, that didn't feel too great. Aizawa grunted as he skidded back. We have to make sure that we keep her busy. I know. What do you think I'm doing? Playing her music? Jiro growled, throwing another shockwave at the villain. Izuka chuckled, as she dodged the shockwave. I've got an idea. How many shockwaves can you make? Aizawa raised an eyebrow. I can use a few more. My arms are starting to go numb. Why? How fast can you make them? Jiro turned to Aizawa with a surprised look. I get it. I can probably make them pretty fast. Aizawa nodded. Then let's go. Dabi and Shoto stood face to face. They both waited for the other to make the first move. Shoto's eyes were drawn to Ochako, as Toga leapt on top of her. He barely ducked out of the way as a tongue of blue flames shot towards him. Come now. You shouldn't get distracted. Dabi chuckled. Cheap shot. Shoto growled, sending a flame of his own at Dabi. The crispy villain let the flames wash over him. Like a summer day. So warm. Dabi smiled. You'll have to do better than that. Meanwhile, Ochako and Toga wrestled back and forth. Ochako negated Toga's gravity and hurled her into a tree. The blonde kicked off of the tree and came hurtling back, with a punch aimed at Okako's stomach. Both girls tumbled to the ground, where they rolled over each other, kicking up dirt from the forest floor. You two are getting in the way of Izuka being happy. Toga growled, you two are getting in the way of the world being happy. Ochako retaliated. Toga chuckled as Ochako released her quirk. She leapt up and pulled out another knife. Why should we have to stay numb our entire lives while the world points and laughs? That's so selfish. Ochako growled. When you are told that you're worthless and that you are only good for being in prison, you come back to me with your answer. Toga's eyes flashed. For now, you can let me have a sip of some of that blood. Ochako rolled to the side as Toga attempted to stab her arm. I don't know what happened to you. But we can help. Toga cackled. The last time someone tried to help me was in middle school. I'm sure you know Jiro? He gave me this. Toga leapt back and rolled up the bottom of her shirt. A large scar stood out on her side. Turns out, he wasn't always such a nice guy. I hope he learned his lesson after I disappeared. No. Kirishima would never do that. Ochako shouted. Believe what you want. Toga said with a smile. I'm sure he would tell you if you asked him. Toga leapt back at Ochako with murder in her eyes. Ochako spun out of the way and disarmed her yet again. Toga smiled and corrected her wrist for the second time. That's getting really annoying. She punched Jiraiya in the face. Ochako spat a bit of blood on the ground and returned the punch. Get fucking used to it when fighting me. Bakugo and the rest of the group ran after Compress and Mag. They were suddenly blocked by a large army of villains. Hello kids. They're clones. Kaminari. It's all you. Denki nodded and ran into battle. Bakugo, Kirishima, Mina, and Tsu all continued after the two who had taken Ru. Kaminari was grabbed by several clones, which he quickly shocked. Easy. Twice smiled under his mask. So. A fun one. Kaminari grinned as more clones rushed at him. Izuka cackled as Aizawa fought tooth and nail against her. The pro hero could barely keep up with the scarred villains' attacks. You can't keep this up forever, Eraser. I don't have to. I just need to fight long enough for backup to arrive. Aizawa grinned as he saw Jiro raise her hands. And this is just the thing I need. Aizawa leapt back as Jiro shot 3 shockwaves in quick succession. Izuka dodged the first, but was hit by the second and third. She chuckled a bit as she stood up. Again. Aizawa said, the other heroes will be here soon. Jiro sent another shockwave. Izuka brought her fist back and punched, countering the shockwave with one of her own and blasting Aizawa and Jiro back. They're here. Nezu squeaked. All Might, Mirko, and Hawks landed in the clearing. Jiro smiled, before collapsing. Aizawa picked her up. Nezu, can you carry her? I may be small, but that doesn't mean I'm strong. Nezu said, taking Jiro. I'll get her back to the camp. You should come too. I need to find my students. Aizawa said. And make sure that Izuka Midoriya is defeated. Nezu nodded and ran into the forest. All Might, Hawks, Mirko, and Aizawa all faced Izuka. Mirko looked a little different. Quirk evolution? Aizawa raised an eyebrow. Mirko nodded. Cool. Izuka grinned. Bring it on, heroes. Endeavor dodged a slash from Stain. God. He is persistent. Stain sneered at the number 2 hero. He leapt back as a fist of earth popped out of the ground. Come now, heroes. Certainly you can do better than that. His fighting style is different. Endeavor thought. He's been practicing. Endeavor generated a spear of fire in his right hand and charged Stain. The hero killer smiled and dodged every attack with ease. Pixie Bob growled as she created some golems to charge him. He's just playing with us. Keeping us busy. Spinor cackled as he clashed with Genist and Tiger. The two heroes were also struggling against the villain. True heroes could handle this no problem. That's enough out of you. Genist said. Blackout bind. Threads of Genist's costume wrapped around, Spinner's neck, suffocating him. Can't breathe. Genist held the bindings firmly. Tiger went in to strike the lizard. A flash of silver bolted in front of Spinner. A clang rang out as Tiger's fist bounced back. Genist's fibers were sliced as Tetsutetsu jumped into the battle. Took you long enough, Damascus. I was about to be hit there. It's your fault that you didn't avoid his special move, Tetsutetsu growled. You need to train more. I know. Thanks for stepping in. No problem. It's what friends are for. Genist and Tiger stared at the boy in front of them. You're the kid from the sports festival. Tetsutetsu smiled. Please. Tetsutetsu's hair turned blood red and his skin rippled. I prefer Damascus. Shoto dodged another plume of fire from Dabi. Tut-tut, Shoto. Are you sure? Your endeavor's perfect creation? Shut up. Shoto growled. Why do my flames feel hotter? That's right. Use your feelings. Let your flames feed off of your emotions. Dabi cackled. Shoto generated a ball of fire and encased it in ice. He threw it at Dabi, and the ball exploded. Dabi was sent back a bit by the force. You're almost there, Shoto. My sides. I don't feel cold or hot. What's going on? The fire on Shoto's left side turned red and crawled over him to encompass his right as well. Dabi grinned. Well done, Shoto. Shoto launched a fireball at Dabi, who dodged. He could feel the heat radiating from it. Oh yeah. That's hot. Shoto's fire became gray ice on his body. A wave of cold swept through the area. Snow began falling from the sky. I will beat you. Dabi grinned and coated himself in blue flames. Not yet, you won't. The two leapt at each other. Their collision caused a massive explosion as hot and cold smashed against each other. Shoto was thrown back, unconscious. Dabi landed on his feet, steam flowing off of his body. You don't have enough experience yet. Ochako saw Shoto fall and went wide-eyed. No. Toga lunged towards her, but was immediately pushed down by the force of increasing gravity. She found she couldn't move. Did she evolve too? Everything within a 500-foot radius of Ochako was pulled to the ground. Dabi fell to his knees under the weight. D-damn. Ochako grabbed Shoto as if the gravity didn't affect him. She immediately dashed into the forest. Bakugo dashed through the forest. Kiri. We have one chance. I need you to throw me. Kirishima nodded and picked Bakugo up. Go get him. With a burst of strength, Kirishima hurled Bakugo skyward. Bakugo channeled One for All into his hands, along with his own quirk, and sped towards Compress. Give her back. Bakugo shot Black Whip out of his arm. Magn deflected it before it could hit Compress. Thank you. No problem, handsome. Bakugo growled as he fell back to the ground. Kirishima, Mina, and Asui caught up to him. Did you get her? No. We need to keep going. The group continued to follow Magn and Compress deeper into the forest. Kaminari felt his brain beginning to slip. I'm overdoing it like this. Two clones took the chance and punched him to the ground. Kaminari grunted as he tried to stand up, only for more clones to beat him into the ground. Kaminari felt a spike of pain as his ribs broke. A crack rang out as his leg was crushed by Twice's stomp. A clone picked Kaminari up by his hair and smashed him into the ground, breaking his nose. Kaminari saw spots as Twice let him lay in the dirt. Twice opened up a cell phone and dialed a number. Hey. Yeah, I'm on my way. Compress got the healer. He should be there soon. Kaminari grunted and got to his feet, fighting through the pain as he tried to find the power to attack. I can't let him get away. Kaminari blinked. His vision blurred. Twice hung up and turned to him. Oh? You still got some fight left? Kaminari blinked as Twice multiplied. Huh. I must be seen double. Fuck. Did I get a concussion from that? Twice laughed. You can't fight. The villain walked forward and grabbed Kaminari by the throat. Watch yourself, boy. You don't wanna get hurt now. I can't let you take them. Kaminari rasped. Watch us. Twice gripped Kaminari's neck harder. Your friends were doomed to begin with. Kaminari grunted as his vision began failing. He felt rage spark inside him as through a hole in the trees, he saw a glade. And tied to a tree in that glade, the bloody form of Minoru, Mineta. No. Mineta. You won't be able to save the GGGGK. Kaminari grabbed twice by the throat. His eyes sparked with malice. Haven't you heard enough, people? Mineta. I can see him over there. Did you kill him? Maim him in some way? Get him. Twice grunted. The clones jumped in. The original Twice slipped out of the area and ran away, heading towards the meetup spot. Kaminari grunted as he felt punches hit him. His ribs cracked. His vision failed. He coughed up blood as the army of clones beat him to a pulp. No. I can't die. I have to help them. You can't save them. I can. Kaminari opened his eyes. And I will. Twice's clones reeled back in shock as Kaminari's yellow eyes sparked internally, glowing with blue light. The boy's hair flashed and became electric blue. Electricity erupted forth from his skin. Kaminari screamed. Shit. Take him down. You underestimated one thing. You see. Kaminari grinned wildly as he felt energy build up. I'm actually really strong. The clones leapt in. Take him down. Full burst. Kaminari shouted. His body became pure electric energy. A massive being of blue light towered over the forest. Lightning crackled as every clone was vaporized. Kaminari screamed. The sound of his roar filled the night. It was as if several hundred explosions occurred at the same time. The sky flickered with lightning. Thunder boomed overhead. Then it was done. Kaminari's form flickered, and he was a boy again. His injuries were healed. If anything, his muscles were more developed. There were no signs of blood on him. He was just unconscious. The sky shook as a being of lightning filled it. Izuka grinned as light illuminated the entire forest. And so another one goes through the evolution process. All Might rushed forward with a smash. Izuka blocked it. Hawks pulled his feathers into his hand to create a sword. He leapt forward and struck. Izuka caught the blade with her open hand. Come on. This is nothing. Aizawa appeared overhead and came down with a kick. Izuka rolled out of the way and leapt at Hawks, blasting him back with a punch. We can't land a hit on her. We'll have to try some new tactics. Hawks split his sword in two and rushed in. Aizawa wrapped his scarf around his arms and ran in as well. As Izuka punched, Aizawa caught her. He moved to the side fluidly and pushed the punch away. The shockwave that resulted hit a tree. Oh! New style eraser? Izuka ducked as Hawks swiped his feather blades over her head. She placed a palm on his stomach. Boom. Hawks was blasted into the air. Aizawa grit his teeth. What is that fighting style? Mirko. Get her. On it. Mirko leapt at Izuka. The rabbit hero landed in front of her and spun around to deliver a destructive roundhouse kick. Her foot stopped right before Izuka's face. What are you doing? Izuka cackled loudly. Come now. You don't really think I didn't have a plan. After all, I was with Mirko. Mirko turned around and looked at Aizawa. Sorry, Eraser. Izuka patted Mirko on the head. Good job, Bunny. Hawks stood up. This can't be real. You're controlling her somehow. That collar. Mirko pointed to the collar. It's just leather. But it is a gift from my master. You can take it off and show them if you want. Izuka smiled. Mirko undid the clasp of the collar and held it up, before kissing Izuka. She clipped it back on without hesitation. That's better. Bunny. Keep Hawks and Eraser busy, please. Mirko grinned. Your wish is my command, Miss Izuka. The once hero charged at Hawks and Aizawa as Izuka turned to Toshinori. You see now? The mistakes you have made to make your dreams a reality? They have led to this, and now I will tear that reality apart. Toshinori grit his teeth. You may have corrupted one of our allies, but you will never win. Izuka smiled. I beg to differ. Let's go, All Might. Show me what you've got. Author's note: this chapter is probably the second to last training camp chapter. Next is last, then we go to Camino. With Kota's quirk, I thought he should have hydrokinesis instead of water gun. I don't know, it just made more sense to me. Also, it's easy to say he faked having a weak quirk. Chapter 50, all according to plan. Ochako dashed through the forest, Todoroki in her arms. Don't worry. You'll be okay. The girl didn't notice that all around her, everything was being pulled to the ground. The gravity field wasn't even registering for her. She was only able to focus on Shoto. The son of Endeavor wasn't hurt badly, just knocked out. There were no burn marks on him. His skin was steaming a little, but that was just because of the sublimated ice. Shoto's eyes fluttered open. Ochako? Shoto. Don't worry. It's gonna be okay. Tears fell from Okako's eyes. Ochako. Your quirk. That isn't important right now. Ochako made it back to the campground. She could see the heroes fighting Stain, Spinner, and Tetsutetsu. There was a small group of heroes stationed by the cabins. Over here. Ochako ran to the cabin with Shoto. We're here. What about the other students? I think you're the last ones other than that group with the Bakugo. Edshot said. We've got a team out looking for them. Why is it hard to stand? Suddenly, the sounds of battle stopped. Everybody turned to see Stain, Tetsutetsu, and Spinner running away. What happened? Edshot called to Endeavor. The number 2 hero shrugged. I don't know. There was this beeping, and they just started running. Should we get them? We need to focus on the students. Endeavor. Your son is here. Shoto? Enji raced over to the cabins and stared at his son. Shoto. Shoto coughed and stood up. I'm fine, Dad. As soon as Endeavor got within range of Ochako, he was floored by gravity. The hell? Ochako. Your quirk. I can't turn it off. Ochako breathed. There's no switch. No way to turn it off. Ochako. Listen to me. Shoto grabbed his friend by the wrists. Calm down. Shoto. Shoto kissed Ochako and cut her off. It's okay, he said, pulling away from the kiss. We're safe now. I can't turn it off. Hey. Focus on me, okay? Focus on me. Shoto said. Breathe in, breathe out. You sense that gravity field, right? Why, yeah. But I can't turn it off. Can you make it bigger? Why would I trust me? Ochako looked at Shoto, before nodding and closing her eyes. Endeavor felt the weight move off of his shoulders. He stood up slowly. What the hell was that? Dad. I think it's time you met my girlfriend. Shoto motioned to Ochako. This is Ochako Uraraka. Izuka cackled with glee as All Might failed to land a hit on her. Come on, All Might. If you don't move fast, your students will be gone. All Might growled and finally landed a hit on the villainess. The blow sent Izuka spinning through the air. All Might didn't waste any time in zooming in front of her to punch her into the air. Izuka bounced around as All Might basically played pinball with her. Her body ragdolling after each hit. Meanwhile, Mirko was locked against Hawks. Aizawa's quirk was useless against her, and she had kicked him to the sidelines in an instant. So you're a villain now? Got a problem? Mirko smirked. Yeah, Hawks said, pushing against the bunny. As a matter of fact, I do. A beep came from Mirko's pocket. That's the signal. Izuka. Mirko turned to see a horrifying sight. All Might had actually done damage to the scarred girl. She was standing in a crater, her outfit destroyed. Her left arm was bruised, and blood was leaking from her mouth. Been a while since. I felt pain. Izuka panted. I let my guard down. All Might rushed in to deliver an attack. Izuka ducked under his punch and hit one of her own, launching the #1 hero into the sky. Well now. That should buy us some time. Miss Izuka. Mirko rushed to her master's side. You're hurt. Izuka chuckled. Nothing I can't deal with. That was the signal, right? We gotta go. Izuka leapt off with Mirko. Hawks began to pursue them. Wait. Aizawa said. You go make sure that the other kids are safe. I'll follow them. Hawks nodded, and both heroes dashed into the forest. Bakugo saw a few motes of purple mist in the air. No, you fucking don't. Him and his friends emerged in a large clearing. Compress stood there with twice, Kurogiri, Magn, Tetsutetsu, Stain, Spinner, Dabi, and Toga. Oh. Hello little heroes. I'm afraid, you're too late. Kurogiri smiled. Like hell. Bakugo blasted towards the portal user, who opened up the warp gate that sent him flying at his friends. Come now little ones, you're not experienced enough. Izuka and Mirko landed in the clearing. Toga rushed to Izuka's side. Holy shit. Babe, are you okay? I'm fine. Do you have her? Toga nodded. Izuka grabbed her and leapt forward as Bakugo shot forward. You can take damage after all. Kirishima was busy staring at Toga. It really is you. The villains huddled together. Izuka. We need to go now. Kurogiri said. I'm with you. Izuka panted. No. Bakugo leapt at Izuka as a portal opened. Izuka ducked, knocked the blonde out with a punch to the face, and slung him over her shoulder. Well. You fell right into my hands after all. Toga glared at Kirishima. Ijiro Kirishima. You remember me? How could I not? Toga snapped back, causing Kirishima to flinch. I will not forgive you for what you did. Enjoy the time you have left. And with that, the League of Villains disappeared. The portal closed, leaving Kirishima, Mina, and Tsu in silence. A rustling came from the woods. Eraserhead dashed out and saw the horrified looks of the students. They got them. Didn't they? Mina wept. Kirishima clenched his fists and growled. Tsu rebutted angrily. Aizawa scowled. Don't worry. We'll get them back. Back at the camp, heroes were busy calming students and scouting the area. The big three had been caught off guard by a transformed Toga, who hit their pressure points and put them out of commission for the entire attack. Several of Class 1B students were in shock after seeing Tetsutetsu. Aizawa was thinking of retiring as his husband supported him. All Might had gone into the forest to blow off some steam. Class 1A. Well, Class 1A had been completely changed. Yaozu now realized how ignorant she had been. Ida realized that even though he survived the Hazu incident, Stain was correct about him. He was not a true hero. He would work on changing that. Several other students were in complete shock as they beheld Jiro and Kaminari. Both had gone through physical changes after collapsing. Jiro's hair had become solid black for some reason. Kaminari's eyes kept fluttering. His body flickering with sparks of blue electricity. Shoto was staying with Uraraka, who had fallen asleep in his arms. Nobody spoke, as he carried her into a cabin and lied down with her. Recovery Girl was in shock when she was healing a student, and Hawks came back with a broken body of Mineta. The child might as well have been dead. His arms were destroyed. His hands were mangled and purple. His nose had been broken badly. His legs were stuck in odd angles, his eyes half closed as he whined in pain. It was a miracle he was still conscious. Chio wasted no time in getting to work on him. She didn't care if it was in the open. Mandalay retrieved N4 from the medical cabin. Chio filled it with nutrient-rich fluid. As soon as the 4 was hooked up, Chio began healing the boy. She managed to stop the bleeding. His arms were healed back to functionality. His legs were mended, but she could tell there was still something wrong. After stripping him out of his costume, she realized. Almost every student who saw threw up. Mineta's genes would no longer grace future generations. Chio sighed and bandaged the boy, before getting him new clothes. Make sure he is attended to by Hound Dog. No doubt he will need therapy after. After this, the heroes all began a meeting in the campground, deciding what they would do next. We must chase after them, Aizawa said. Endeavor thought about the conversation he had with his son. Flashback: this is my girlfriend, Ochako Uraraka. Endeavor was silent. The wind blew softly. Uraraka shuddered. Shoto put his hand over his heart. Now, I know that you might not, Shoto. Endeavor interrupted. I haven't been the best father. In fact, I've been worse than any villain. I think I will never be able to fully atone for what I have done. But I can still try. If this girl is who you love, then I will support you. Shoto was shocked. Why, you're okay with it? Endeavor nodded and turned to Uraraka. Miss Uraraka, I hope that you will make my Shoto happy. Now, I think we have something else to talk about. Shoto nodded. The pyromancer. Dabi. It's Tuya. Isn't it? Endeavor frowned. I should have known. I should have made sure that he was okay. Dad. He won't change now, Shoto said. I saw his eyes. They were so filled with hate. I don't think he'll turn back. Endeavor nodded. Then it's our duty to stop him. So you can become a hero. Shoto noticed how his father didn't specify the number one position. He nodded. Okay, Dad. Endeavor shuddered. He called me Dad. Shoto turned to Ochako. I'll take care of Ochako, she's still a little shaken up. You might become a decent person after all, Dad. Flashback: and Endeavor opened his eyes. We will track these villains down. When we do, I'll face off against the pyromancer. The heroes looked at him. That's great, but how do we find them? I think I have a solution. Nezu raised a paw. Izuka, Midoriya's lab partner, Hatsumai, aided in constructing several support items alongside her. These include the suit that is now worn by Himiko Toga. How do we know that Hatsum isn't a villain as well? Edshot asked. We don't. But we do know that there is a tracking device on the suit. There is a chance that we could activate it without them knowing. Powerloader jogged up to the group. I just called Hatsum. She was very surprised to hear about her partner. She gave me all the schematics to every one of their creations, including Toga's suit. We can activate the tracker. Then let's not waste this chance. We must act quickly. Izuka panted as she dropped through a portal into her father's home. Ru was beside her, knocked out. That could have gone better. Izuka? You're back? All for One floated out of the room and looked at his injured daughter. Oh my goodness. Did All Might get you? Izuka chuckled. I let my guard down. All for One nodded and placed a hand on Izuka's head. This will drain a bit of your stamina, but you'll at least be at full health. Izuka felt energy seep away as her injuries were healed. A sound came from the side of the room. Ru had woken up. Where am I? All for One turned to the healer. You're Ru Takanawa, correct? Ru nodded. Yeah. Who are you? Your face is shadowed. All for One turned to Izuka. Can you speak to her? Izuka nodded and stepped towards Ru. The girl shivered as she saw Izuka. And no, not you. Ru. I need to know about your quirk. Izuka said. I need to know about its drawbacks. I don't want you to get hurt. You? A villain? You don't want me to get hurt? Ru was going mad. Don't make me laugh. She laughed. I assure you. I really don't want you to get hurt. In fact, I want you to help somebody. My father. Your father. Ru blinked. It's that man. Isn't it? All for One floated forward, revealing his face. Ru gasped. I assume that Recovery Girl told you about me. My evil quirk, my rivalry with All Might. The symbol of peace did this to me. He broke my daughter. So please, heal him. Izuka untied Ru. The girl walked up to All for One. I don't like this. But I can't turn down someone who is suffering. Even if they are a villain. I don't know if I can heal him all the way. My quirk has gotten stronger, but healing him completely might kill me. I'll try to heal, about as much as I did for All Might. Ru placed her hand on All for One's hand. Her eyes glowed. All for One began to heal. His face returned to how it had been when he was young. His eyes returned, beautiful, empty gray orbs that regarded the world with delight. There was still some scarring on his face, but it looked a lot better than it had been previously. Ru stopped her quirk and held her head. Woozy. All for One landed and caught her. He looked at his hand and flexed it. I feel better. Not at 100%, but it boosted the healing factors I have. I might recover fully in a week, on my own. The man placed a hand on Ru's head and pressed. Her eyes shot open. What happened? I gave you a gift, for helping me. All for One said. We'll return you in time. But, I won't need you anymore. Izuka. Yes, father. Take Ms. Takanawa to a guest room. The heroes will arrive soon, make sure she's rescued. All right. Izuka took Ru and guided her through a portal into an empty room. Here. It's one of the nicer ones. Why are you treating me nicely? You're villains. Ru said. Just because we're villains, doesn't mean we're monsters. You healed my father, and I thank you for that. Everybody in the league has their own problems, which society nowadays ignores. We're going to change that. Then. You're more of an anti-hero. Ru said. Izuka chuckled. Kinda. Now. You can stay here until the heroes arrive. That'll be soon. Izuka walked out of the room. Ru watched her go with new thoughts. They all have their own problems. Izuka stepped into the bar. Shigaraki looked at her. The blonde kid's over in there. He pointed to a door a few feet away. Izuka thanked him and walked in. Inside the room, Bakugo was strapped to a chair. His hair was in his face, he was breathing peacefully. Izuka smiled and walked forward. She sat down on his lap and wrapped her legs around his waist. Wake up, sleepyhead. Katsuki's eyes fluttered open. Izuka, what? He struggled against his bindings, causing Izuka to laugh. After a few minutes, he stopped. So you got me? Huh? That's right. Izuka smiled. Katsuki looked up at her face. His vision flickered, and for a moment, he saw Izuka as a child, smiling at him joyfully. Then he blinked, and he found Izuka's scarred face looking back at him. Well? Having a fun time remembering the past? How did you? Your eyes glazed over. Izuka chuckled. Bakugo gritted his teeth. What are you planning? What are you doing, Izuka? You want to know? Well. It isn't like you can stop us anyway. First, we're gonna kill All Might. Then, we will begin our revolution. Izuka pulled out a knife and pressed it to Katsuki's cheek. We will leave Japan for a while. And when you become the #1 hero, you will die like All Might. Bakugo shuddered as Izuka leaned in close to his ear. See? Then everybody gets what they want. You get to be the best. I get my revenge. It will be delightful. Bakugo growled. Izuka giggled. Oh. So scary, little Pomeranian. Don't worry. I'll make sure you die quickly. UMMPH. Izuka smashed her lips into Bakugo's. Katsuki froze, caught off guard completely. Izuka pulled away from the kiss, a puff of steam escaping her lips. Her cheeks turned pink. Well. A bit of caramel. Nothing ever changes. Would come now, Kaken. Izuka touched the tip of her nose to Bakugo's. You didn't like it? Bakugo felt his heart quicken. Izuka was pushing her breasts against him, sitting in his lap. She was trying to make him vulnerable. Fuck off. Bakugo breathed. Izuka smiled, stood up, and began walking out. Why did you do it? Why did you jump? Izuka turned around. Her single eye glowed with hatred. Because I was nobody, with nothing to my name except the title of failure. I suffered every day. So now, I'll make sure that your days are as filled with anxiety and depression as mine were. Izuka walked out of the room, leaving Bakugo alone. So, you say what you wanted? Shigaraki asked. He knows what I want him to know. And soon, everything will play out perfectly. The heroes gathered around the site of the bar, and All for One's warehouse, where there was another tracker. All for One grinned as he saw the shadows of heroes flit around the city block. Soon Father will return, and the symbol of peace will fall. A group of students, Kirishima, Ida, Tso, Kaminari, Jiro, Shoto, Ochako, and Tso walked down the street, searching for the tracker that the heroes were talking about. Hatsum did a good job. Everything is in place. All Might, Hawks, and Kamui stood with 20 heroes at the entrance to the bar. It all starts. In 3, 2, 1. A knock came from the door, accompanied by a cheery voice. Pizza, delivery. Author's note, so ends the camp, and so begins the battle between All for One and All Might. The Battle of Camino. This will be incredible. I'm also gonna pull off some BS. So, please remember, All for One isn't fully healed. Keep some of the stuff like that in mind as we continue. Chapter 51, Clash of Gods. Pizza delivery. Izuka smiled. Get ready. The wall was reduced to rubble as several heroes leapt through. All Might, Kamui, Hawks, Midnight, and Ectoplasm. Izuka was bound to the wall by Kamui. All Might blasted forward and knocked Kurogiri out. Dobby and Twice were overwhelmed by Ectoplasm. Mirko was restrained by Hawks. Tetsutetsu, Stain, and Spinner were rapidly taken down, while Compress and Magn had been knocked out by the heroes' entrance. Hey, figures the heroes would show up fast. That damn support student did something, didn't she? Izuka acted. Midnight tore her costume, releasing a mist through the entire bar. Every villain except for Izuka was knocked out. The scarred girl chuckled. Sorry. I'm not affected by any types of gas or any paralyzing agents. Midnight sniffed and walked off to find Ru and Bakugo. Izuka smiled at Kamui. Well, hero. You helped capture me. What are you going to do now? You're going away for a long time. Kamui said. Izuka chuckled. Okay. But how about? No. In a display of power, Izuka smashed through Kamui's lacquered chain prison. She dashed around the room, taking out ectoplasm clones easily. All Might glared at her. Well, All Might. Izuka smiled. Your power is waning. How do you think you'll fare against him now? A gray liquid oozed around Izuka and the other villains. And then, they were gone. What the hell just happened? Kamui asked. We must get the children out of here. All Might said. He walked into the room where Bakugo was being held. Returning to the main room, he saw that Midnight had secured Ru. A buzzing came from somewhere in the room, and a TV screen flickered to life. We're here at Camino, where several pro heroes have just performed an incredible feat. The shutdown of one of the labs used by the League of Villains. The lab was specifically used to create and store the creatures that attacked many heroes in the Hazu incident. The Namu factory is currently being searched by Pro Heroes Endeavor, and Best Jeanist, who hope to find any extra information about the League. In the background, All Might saw a figure in jeans and a ripped hoodie. The figure turned and smiled at the camera. The number one hero turned white as Izuka Midoriya laughed, silencing the reporter. Well, All Might? Can you make it in time? A flicker of red lightning buzzed at the top of the warehouse on screen. A massive explosion shook the area. All Might could feel the ground rumble beneath his feet. Shit. All for One appeared in the air, looking as healthy as ever. His gray eyes regarded the world with glee. In one hand, he held the struggling form of Best Jeanist. I need to go. Before that, take this. Ru placed a hand on All Might's shoulder. The hero instantly felt rejuvenated. "Thank you, young Ru." All Might exited the building and took off. Bakugo slumped. Ru walked over, and healed him as well. "I need to help him." Midnight tried to grab the blonde, but he crackled with lightning and was gone in an instant. "Bloody insane. He'll be killed. Cammy, get Ru back to. I'll go help in the fight." Midnight dashed out of the building. Ru hopped onto Cammy's back, and they both made their way to the school. All for One looked at the unconscious bodies of his associates. "Izuka, my dear. Please protect them." Izuka nodded and stood by the vanguard. Best Jeanist stood up from where All for One had thrown him. Endeavor leapt out of the building towards Izuka. "Bring it on, heroes." Endeavor and Jeanist clashed with Izuka. All for One fought against an army of heroes on the scene. After blasting them back, he turned and looked up at the sky. All Might approached at high speeds. "Ah. So the guest of honor has arrived." Izuka smirked as she fought. She heard her father speak, and knew All Might had arrived. The symbol of peace landed in front of All for One. He immediately threw a punch, which All for One dodged. All Might leapt forward with rage in his eyes. All for One chuckled. "Come now, All Might. That expression doesn't suit you. You don't get to talk." All Might growled. "I'll defeat you here and now." All for One caught All Might's attack. "You're weaker now. There's no way you can beat me like this." All Might leapt back as All for One shot a massive blast of air at him. The villain flipped his hands so his palms faced downward. He clenched his hands into fists and brought them up. The ground rumbled. "You like this power? I stole it from a hero you fought alongside in America. I've been watching every move you make, All Might." Toshinori grit his teeth and leapt at the villain once more. Detroit smash. The punch hit All for One in the face, sending him back a little bit. The villain chuckled and ducked as All Might threw another punch. "I always found it ironic that your power is so great. All of your attacks are super moves. I mean, half the battle is just you saying smash." All Might grit his teeth as he pushed against All for One. "Shut up." All for One grabbed All Might's wrist and hurled him away, sending him through a building. "Come now, All Might. We have a lot to talk about. It's been what? 12 years? Toshinori walked back onto the battlefield. All for One smiled and held up his hand. "Like I said, 12 years. I've spent 12 long years thinking of how to defeat you. I've finally come up with the perfect amalgamation of quirks to do so." All for One flexed his hand, a small orb of red light appeared on each of his fingertips. "First, we have laser shot, counter, energy boost, air cannon, lightning bolt, and antimatter." The light coalesced into All for One's palm. His arm swelled up with air, before a massive beam of destruction exploded from his open palm. All Might managed to avoid the blast, but a sizable chunk of the city was reduced to rubble. Jeanist and Endeavor stared at the destruction. "The hell?" A yellow blur raced past. Gran Torino had arrived on the scene. "Stop fighting the girl. We need to evacuate the civilians and support All Might." "Right." Both heroes ran into the wasteland that had once been a fifth of Camino. As they picked up citizens and pulled bodies from rubble, they noticed that roughly 70 heroes were on the scene. Each one was helping out. Jeanist turned to Endeavor. "I have no doubt that more will arrive. I must take that girl down." Endeavor nodded. "Restrain her. If the others wake up, she will be allowed to attack. We cannot let that happen." Jeanist dashed towards Izuka, who smiled and prepared herself for battle yet again. Ru had made it back to the school. Nezu greeted her and brought in her parents. Both were delighted to see her, but acknowledged that she still had work to do. The girl was brought to Recovery Girl, who was busy treating students left and right. "When we're done healing them, we need to get to Camino and heal the civilians," Chio said. "Right." Ru pulled on a nurse's uniform and got to work, healing students with burns. disinfecting wounds. Recovery girl had treated about 10 of the students before getting Mineta. She had spent most of the time since then caring for the pervert. Ru looked up at a screen displaying the battle at Camino. Please make it out alive. Midnight saw the flickering orange lightning up ahead. She was in a car, following Katsuki closely. I need to make sure he doesn't get hurt. As she arrived on the scene of the battle, she spotted a group of very familiar-looking teens. What the fuck are you doing here? Midnight raged at Kirishima and his friends. Kirishima looked at Midnight. We came to save them. Midnight sighed and shook her head. Okay, just go now. If you're here, you could die, and we can't have that. Don't worry, Ru is safe. What about Katsuki? Kirishima asked without hesitation. I'll take care of him, now go. Midnight ran onto the site of the battle. Kirishima and his friends watched her go. She's right. We need to get away from here. Izuka giggled joyfully as Genist failed to land a hit on her. As she fought, All for One and All Might clashed with intensity. Every time they met, the earth shook. It's funny, you know. Even now I dream of you charging at me with your entrails strewn across the ground. All for One laughed as he pushed All Might back. Izuka punched Best Genist away. She saw Bakugo dashing towards the fight and lunged at him. A whip cracked and wrapped around her wrist. Izuka smiled and turned to see Midnight, whip in hand. Mist flowing from her body to keep the League unconscious. Hello Midnight. Izuka smiled, grabbing the whip and tearing it from her wrist. Izuka Midoriya. You will not harm anybody else. Izuka pulled Midnight towards her and grabbed her by the waist. She brought her lips to Kayama's and kissed her passionately. A number of citizens lined up with cameras to take pictures. Hey look. They love you being kissed by me. Izuka whispered in Midnight's ear. You know. It's so easy. You could just disappear, and come with me. Midnight shook. No. I won't do that. Come on Midnight. We could have so much fun together. Midnight bit her tongue. I will never help a villain. Izuka smirked and tossed Midnight to the ground. Fine then. The scarred girl pulled the whip from the hero's hands. Also, you're using this incorrectly. Izuka cracked the whip across Midnight's back. The force of the weapon shredded the hero's costume. Cameras began clicking even faster. You see? They don't see you as a hero. Izuka whispered in her ear. You're just an object for them. A woman to get off to. Once you're gone, they won't even care. And no. They would, and never. A tear rolled down Midnight's cheek as the civilians continued taking pictures. Stop. Can't you see? If you keep staying here, you'll die. They don't care. Izuka's voice crept into her ear. They only like your body. Izuka cracked the whip again, making Midnight scream. The hero watched as the photographers clicked their cameras rapidly. Izuka smiled as she saw more tears rolling down the hero's face. Sleep. Izuka cracked the whip yet again. This time, Midnight was knocked out. Izuka dropped the whip on top of her unconscious body and turned to the photographers. Having fun? You gonna get off to those later? Some of the photographers gulped. Izuka threw a punch. The shockwave she created sent the civilians flying. That's what I fucking thought. All for One grinned as he sent Toshinori flying yet again. He could tell by the way the number one hero was slowing that he was only using the final embers of One for All. My brother's power grows weaker within you it seems. How long can you keep this up All Might? Toshinori gritted his teeth and launched a shockwave at the villain. All for One chuckled and dodged easily. I've been looking forward to this day. The day I can destroy you, and your hope, just like you destroyed my family. All Might launched forward. All for One floated upwards and grinned. All Might's face twisted into one of sheer rage. You monster. You dare use her power. All for One cackled. Your face is glorious. Yes. I took this quirk from her that day. I've been waiting to use it. Just for you. All Might roared and launched himself at All for One. The villain grabbed him and threw him into the ground. There's so much that I could say to you. For instance, I could tell you the truth about Shida. The truth about my daughter. The truth about Tamura. What did you do to Shida? All for One laughed. Me? Why, I did nothing. She joined me and became my wife. My lab partner. We made so many breakthroughs by studying quirks. She was my love. The best woman in the universe. Oh, gag me. All Might muttered. What did you do to young Izuka? What did I do? All for One growled. All Might leapt to the side as the villain shot a blast of energy at him. I wasn't there for her. My OWN daughter. I wasn't there, because you left me on the brink of death. All Might leapt at All for One yet again. And? You killed Nana Shimura. You left her family without her. All for One laughed so hard he was hit by All Might's attack. His maniac cackle filled the air and reverberated for miles. All Might landed on his feet and looked up at the villain with confusion. What's so funny? I've done way more for that family than you heroes ever did. You want to know a little secret? My protege. My apprentice. My inheritor. The leader of the league next to my daughters, sighed Tamura Shigaraki. What about him? All for One laughed so hard that the ground rumbled. Tamura Shigaraki is the last living relative of Nana Shimura. His real name is Tenko Shimura. Her grandson. All Might froze. No. And that makes you think? Do you even understand the amount of hatred that boy has inside him? His mother abandoned him to defeat me. Because my brother told her, in her mind. Nothing is important to one who wields that stolen power. You're lying. Why would I lie? Take his new name. Shigaraki Tamura. Shimura. Don't you see? All Might growled. Then I will save him. All for One cackled, before directing another blast of energy at the symbol of peace. You would save him. Knowing that he was Shimura's grandson. Would you have saved my daughter? Would you have given her hope knowing she was my daughter? Of course I would. I would help anybody in need. Well, you didn't. You didn't know. And you destroyed her. You led to her creation. You led to her quirklessness. You led to her terrible life. And in the end, just to rub it in her face, you gave that power of yours to her greatest bully, after you drove her to suicide. All for One clenched his fist, shaking in rage. I am a villain, but I can still have a family. My family was destroyed by heroes. You are the villain of this story. All Might was thrown back through several buildings. All for One appeared in front of him and punched a hole in the number one hero's side. All Might coughed up a bit of blood, and his muscle form disappeared in a puff of steam. That's right, Toshinori. Show the world how weak you really are. Several heroes gawked as the skeletal form of Toshinori was put on display to the entire world. Izuka cackled loudly. All for One grinned. So now, the world will fall to us. I hope you enjoy watching your dream crumble. All for One raised his fist, which glowed with power. Yo. Sushui here. I just want to say I'm not sorry for what's about to happen. Bakugo didn't know what he was doing. He had run to the battle to protect All Might, but he couldn't get close to the battle that raged in the center of a wasteland. The blonde decided to aid the other heroes in rescuing civilians. He had moved about 100 people, when he heard a large boom. Bakugo looked up to see Toshinori in his emaciated form. All for One laughed as he raised his fist for a final blow. Bakugo's legs moved on their own. His entire body was charged with One for All as he leapt forward at 50%. Nothing broke. I have to save him. Izuka watched as Bakugo ran towards the fight, shadows curled from his arm. No. She mumbled. Dad's distracted. I've got to know you don't. Best Jeanist leapt back into the fight. Endeavor and Hawks joined him. Izuka traded blows with all three. Hawks went flying, one of his wings broken. Endeavor's flames were blown out as Izuka delivered a full power punch to the hero's stomach. Endeavor fell back, unconscious. Wait. Where's Genist? Thread of hope. Izuka found herself wrapped in threads. Her arms were pulled back and covered. She couldn't T move or break free. No. Genist clenched his hands tightly. Bakugo raced towards All for One. Izuka's father cackled as his fist came down. Toshinori dodged and gave one last punch. Weak. All for One cried. Goodbye all GRRK. Bakugo threw his fist forward and impaled All for One with Black Whip. The tendrils ripped through Izuka's father's torso. The villain fell to the ground. Izuka screamed. Author's note: I think that's a good place to end the chapter. Yeah, I know. I'm terrible. Welcome to the beginning and the end of the Camino incident. I hope you enjoy what comes next. Sushui out. Chapter 52, Angel or Demon? So. I'm not sorry. Let's continue. Toshinori felt his muscle form fail. He could feel the last embers of One for All flicker. All for One smiled. The world will fall to us. Enjoy watching your dream crumble. All for One's arm glowed with power as he raised it to deliver the finishing blow. I have been waiting so long to end you. My child's life has been destroyed by you. My family, torn to shreds by your image. I will enjoy your demise. Toshinori pushed the last motes of his power into his right arm. I've only got one shot. God Ender. United States of Smash. The two attacks cancelled each other out. Toshinori shrank. All for One smiled. Weak. You're weak, Toshinori Yagi. Just like Nana. Don't worry, you'll be seeing her very soon. All for One raised his arm once again. Goodbye all GRRK. All for One felt pain shoot through his body. He looked down in disbelief to see tendrils of darkness protruding from his chest. Damn. I forgot about him. All for One's body was torn apart. The villain fell to the ground limply. Bakugo ran up to All Might. We need to get you out of here before now. Izuka's scream shredded her bindings and blasted every hero to the ground. Best Genist was thrown out of the wasteland. He landed somewhere on the edges of Camino. The other heroes were floored, some knocked out by the immense power of Izuka's raging emotions. She couldn't keep them contained. Izuka ran to her father's side. Dad. Dad. All for One coughed. His gray eyes regarding her face with sadness. I'm so sorry. Cough, I won't make it. No. No, Dad. Just give me the revival quirk. Yeah. I can bring you back. All for One coughed and shook his head. There's no coming back from this. The truth is, I brought you back with a combination of quirks. You cannot possibly hold them all. Cough. And they aren't compatible with you. Izuka wept as her father reached up to stroke her cheek. Izuka. I don't have much time left. But it's enough. Get out of here. Pass this on to Tamura. It's the only quirk that I can give you in your ascended state. Your birthright. Izuka felt the power transfer into her body. Dad. No. Don't go. I love you, my daughter. And I always will. I believe in you and the League. Cough. Now it's time to rest. All for One's new eyes went dull as life left his body. Izuka wailed. The heroes began recovering. Bakugo grabbed Toshinori and led him away. Come on. Gran Torino joined the two and helped them leave. The League began stirring to find themselves surrounded. No. Tamura breathed. Toga bowed her head as she saw Izuka. Tetsutetsu grit his teeth. Mirko cried with her master. The heroes began closing in on the villains. Tetsutetsu went full berserker mode and kept the heroes at bay, but the villains were soon overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Kurogiri wasn't awake yet. Izuka wept over the body of her father. She felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Quickstep, the warping hero. Izuka Midoriya, you're coming with us. The hero saw the body of All for One and called to his allies. "It's okay now. All Might did it." Izuka mumbled something inaudible. Quickstep turned back to her. "What was that?" I said. "Nothing's okay." Izuka shook. Her skin flickered white. Her normal dull glow changed and became black. She saw her friends being restrained, her family. "You heroes. You think that you can get away with anything?" Izuka's aura grew around her, a voice echoed in her mind. Assimilation of Quirk recognized. Quirk, All for One, has bonded to host, Izuka Midoriya. Ascension to Demonkin status requested. Request confirmed. Alterations pending. Izuka's hair furled out behind her and turned back to its original green color. Her single eye glowed and became slitted. Her ears shifted to become pointed. Izuka's teeth remolded and became fang-like. Her canines became a bit longer. Second ascension to Demonkin status complete. Artificial creation of Quirk, All for One, beginning. Process complete. Quirk duplicated. You kill my father. You shun those that you don't understand. You hurt those that you despise, all in the name of justice. Justice weeps when you say her name. You have no right to know. Izuka cut the hero off. You have no right. Today will be a great day celebrating the heroes for their victory. Everything is going perfectly. You all get the attention you yearn for. Your peace holds. Everything is okay. That's right. No. It's not. Nothing will be okay about this day, because you pissed me off. Nothing will be okay, you will all know fear. Izuka whipped around and grabbed Quickstep by the head. The hero screamed as she stole his quirk. He panted as the process ended. Izuka squeezed, causing the man to die as he was crushed. She tossed the body to the side. The villainess turned to the number of heroes that were staring at her in horror and licked the blood off of her hand. Izuka disappeared and reappeared behind the heroes. Hope is dead. Izuka punched through the stomach of one hero, the snipping hero, sever and stole their quirk. Because I am here. Quirk, Quickstep, assimilation complete. Quirk, Scissor, assimilation complete. Izuka tore through the legion of heroes. Blood hung on the air. The bodies of the fallen were no longer recognizable. Izuka's eye was dilated to the point of looking like a snake. She saw her friends being rapidly escorted into police cars. Izuka roared and appeared above the cars. She used a telekinesis quirk to pull them into the sky. The cars and their drivers were crushed into a ball of metal and blood. Izuka pointed to Kurogiri and forcefully activated his quirk. The villains were warped to a safe point. Izuka turned back to the wasteland and saw the face of Toshinori. You will not escape from me. Izuka rocketed forward. Bakugo suddenly found that while he was holding his teacher's arm, the rest of him wasn't attached. Izuka held the pain-riddled form of Toshinori in her hands. She had taken his right arm off, the arm he used to attack her father. I wanted to kill you for so long. I wanted to make sure that you died quickly. But now, I realize why my dad wanted to make you suffer. Izuka punched through Toshinori's back and severed his spine, shutting down his legs. You will never walk again. You will never be a hero again. All you will be able to do is watch as I burn your success to the ground. Izuka grabbed Toshinori's head and pressed. The man screamed as his injuries were fully healed. But first I will break you again and again. Over and over until you are nothing but an empty shell. People watched, in horror as Izuka ripped All Might apart painfully, before healing him and repeating the process. Heroes tried to aid the symbol of peace and get him out of the situation, but Izuka kept them away easily. One hero by the name of Quicksilver, whose quirk allowed him to create and manipulate a silver aura, used his quirk to boost his strength and leap at Izuka. The scarred girl backhanded him so hard that he exploded. Izuka continued to torture Toshinori endlessly for 5 hours, until finally, she grew tired and threw the demolished man to the ground. You've made a mistake, heroes. Soon, the world will fall. Izuka teleported away, leaving a destroyed Toshinori, a mentally scarred Katsuki Bakugo, and a world filled with terror. Izuka warped into the new base off the coast of Japan. She immediately walked up to Shigaraki. Tamura. He's gone. Tamura nodded silently. Here. He told me to give this to you. Izuka placed her hand on Tamura's head. The man shivered as all for one was passed on to him. Izuka then pushed all of the quirks she gathered into the man as well, who accepted them without pause. And finally, she passed on the copy of All for One. The man shuddered yet again and opened his eyes. Why give it all to me? Because. Izuka wrapped her arms around him. It's what he promised you. And I will make sure that every promise he made is fulfilled. Tamura noticed Izuka's voice shaking. He hugged her back. Thank you. Little sis. Izuka smiled. No problem. Anya-chan. Izuka walked out of the room. The members of the league popped their heads out of a doorway. Is she okay? Tamura shook his head. That just destroyed her. Toga sat down next to the man. It obviously hurt you too. Do you want to talk about it? Tamura sniffed. He was a good man, you know. He had great ambitions, and the power to achieve them. He wanted to make an equal world. But those with power don't want equality. Toga rubbed Tamura's back. It's okay. He wasn't just her father, or my sensei. He was our father. Toga hugged Tamura close. And now, it's up to us to make sure that his dreams are achieved. The blonde stood up. I'm going to go talk to her now. Hopefully she's cooled down a bit. Toga walked out of the room to look for Izuka. Do you think she'll be okay? Tetsutetsu asked. Not for a while she won't. Dabi sighed. The police and heroes had planned on giving Bakugo a stern talk, but the state of Toshinori kept them from that. The combined efforts of Ru and Chiyu were enough to heal him to a point, but even Ru's power couldn't fix everything. Toshinori could no longer walk. His right arm was missing. His once proud hair now hung down, shadowing his face. Aizawa, Mick, and Nezu were busy comforting the students. While everybody was focused on the number one hero and the state of the students, there was one person they forgot about. Midnight's eyes fluttered open. The first thing she noticed was that she was in a hospital bed. The second was that she had no clothes on. The hell? A doctor burst through the door. You're awake. What is the meaning of this? Midnight shouted. Where am I? Why am I naked? Miss Kayama, calm down, you're in the hospital. The reason that you have no clothes is we're trying to assess the total damage done to you. So far, there are no signs of disease. No signs of pregnancy. Midnight sat up and attempted to stand. What do you yog? Pain spiked through the hero's legs. Midnight looked down to see her skin bruised. What? The doctor bowed his head. I'm so sorry, Miss Kayama. But, don't say it. I already understand. Midnight sniffed. Just. Can you bring me some clothes? And then just. Leave me alone. The doctor nodded and had a spare set of clothes brought in. He then left the room. Midnight curled up into a ball and wept. Her tears stained the sheets of the hospital bed as feelings of sheer worthlessness clouded her mind. Toga walked through the doorway and into a darkened bedroom. The blonde hit the light switch, and the lights came on. Toga saw nothing at first, but then in the corner, behind the headboard of the bed, a pile of blankets rustled. Izuka? Too bright. Toga turned the lights off and walked into the room. In the corner, a single acidic green eye glowed. The pupil was cat-like, and regarded Toga with intensity. The blonde could see the feelings raging behind the single green orb. Izuka? Go away. Toga stepped forward. Izuka. I won't leave you. If you stay around me, I'll get attached. You'll die too. Toga sat down next to the bundle of blankets. No. I won't. You know why? Because I will stay by you. I have full faith in you. He's gone, Toga. He's gone. Toga wrapped her arms around Izuka. "I know, babe." Izuka sniffled, and began weeping. "I know." Izuka woke up in her new room. To anybody else, it would seem to be pitch black. Izuka could see just fine. So. A second ascension. Izuka stepped in front of a mirror. Her eye glowed back at her. "What the hell happened to my body?" Izuka took off her clothes and stared at her reflection. Her body had been covered by scars, but now, more minor scars were gone. The hand scars on her arms remained, but cuts and scratches had disappeared. Izuka's hair was a bit longer, and had returned to its natural dark green color. Her ears were long and pointed. "It's like I jumped out of a fairy tale." The girl looked at her reflection a bit more, before returning to her bed and falling asleep. Several days later Bakugo walked into his new home. UA had constructed several large buildings for student and parental housing. The classes were all to live together. Each building was roughly half the size of the Mina building. Each held an entire house for each family. All in all, they were huge. Bakugo sat in the large common area down on the first floor. Him and his parents lived on the fifth floor. Several of his friends had arrived on the campus as well. Kaminari, Kirishima, Mina, Shoto, Ochako, Jiro, and So were all living in the building. "So Bakugo, you were there. What happened?" Kaminari asked. Bakugo tensed. His back cracked. Tears welled in his eyes as he recalled the face of Izuka. The face of sheer rage. "Sorry. I woke up after the whole thing." Kaminari scratched the back of his head. "I don't know what happened after I went all out. And I haven't been paying much attention to the news." Katsuki kept silent. Kaminari noticed he was shaking. "If you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. It's obviously bad if it put you in this state." "I'm sorry, man." Kaminari patted Bakugo on the shoulder. "If you ever need to talk, you can come speak to me." Meanwhile, in Uraraka's bedroom, Shoto was cuddled up to the gravity girl. Their housing units were next to each other. So the Uraraka got to meet all of the Totorakis. Endeavor pulled his wife out of the hospital and swore to protect her and his children with his life. His status had gone up and he was now the #1 hero. Rei was skeptical at first, but when she saw how Shoto was acting towards Endeavor, she decided to give him another chance. The Totorakis and the Urarakas met for dinner every day. They would alternate which housing space they used. It was just a feeling thing. The other kids had no trouble moving into dorms. Those who had been near Camino were silent about the fight. All Might would never recover fully. Bakugo knew that it was his time to step up. He would soon be put in the position to stop Izuka and the League. Meanwhile, Toshinori had been outfitted with a prosthetic arm. He was completely broken from the fight, but decided that he still had to teach the next generation, so they wouldn't make the mistakes he made. The blonde made his way from place to place with a wheelchair. He didn't cough up blood, but his body shook from time to time. His legs were completely paralyzed. Even though he was in pain, he managed to keep a smile on his face. Aizawa and present Mick lived together in the 1A housing units. Midnight lived there as well, although she had never left her quarters. And so, school was back in session 2 weeks later. The students found themselves in their classrooms. Aizawa and Vlad addressed them, and they moved on to lessons. "Now, first of your art history classes. You will have a new teacher. Kamui Woods has offered to step in. Are there any questions?" Several students raised their hands. "What happened to Ms. Midnight?" Aizawa looked down. "Midnight is taking some sick time. She was injured during the battle and, well, she just needs some time." The students nodded. Aizawa launched onto the schedule. "This week, we're working on super moves. Each hero is known for using some special attacks. Take Endeavor for example. His Flash Fire Fist attacks. They're used to change the tides of battle. The students nodded as Aizawa explained super moves. Finally, an hour later, they were on the training ground. Each student was given a separate place to develop moves. As they worked, Aizawa watched to see if there would be any more potential evolutions. Ochako had made progress with her evolved quirk. The gravity field she generated couldn't be turned off, but she could manipulate it at will. If she condensed it, she could bring the force of gravity up by 500 times its normal strength. Of course, that was by making the gravity foot 1 foot wide. At that point, it was incredibly hard to control. Ochako called down to Aizawa. "I have an idea. But it's dangerous." Aizawa called to Cementos. "Give everybody a wall." Ochako concentrated on the gravity field and made it split. She brought the fields up and centered them on her hands, before increasing the gravity and pulling. A small hole opened in the air. Ochako breathed slowly and moved her hands in a circle, before thrusting them forward. The black hole shot forward, blasting a hole in Okako's target before disappearing. Aizawa smirked. "Good, that's the kind of creativity I want to see." Kaminari was busy experimenting with his quirk. Electrification's limit had been increased 100-fold. Kaminari was trying to learn more about his energy form. Imagine his surprise when he went to plug his phone in, and got sucked into the power outlet. Huh. Well, this is cool. I can feel the entire gym through the wires. Kaminari's absence was not unnoticed. Aizawa had seen him get sucked into the outlet. "Kaminari. Do you want to work on that?" The building shook with Kaminari's approval. "Huh. Probably shouldn't do that." Todoroki was focusing on ways to combine his attacks. He learned that his armor could be a viable super move. His fire and ice explosions could also be a super move. His power had many options. Kirishima was working on improving his stamina. He wanted to be able to hold muscular enhancement for an entire hour before getting tired. So he had sought au pair with him to stress his quirk. All in all, the students were having a very productive day. It had been days since All for One's death. The League had kept out of sight of the public. Izuka had only come out of her room at night, and even then, she wrapped herself in blankets so nobody saw her. So came the night where Dabi decided to put on a movie. Izuka shuffled out of her room at 11:30. She wasn't expecting Dabi to be seated on a couch, watching TV. A plate of cheese and crackers was on the table, with a note. Izuka shuffled over to the table and read the note. "You wanna talk a little bit?" Izuka turned around and looked at Dabi. She picked up the plate of food and shuffled over to the couch. "I was wondering if you were going to actually sit." Dabi smiled. Izuka said nothing, she just brought a cracker to her mouth and bit down. Dabi watched her with interest. "Is there a reason you won't show your face?" Izuka froze, and then went back to eating. Dabi sighed. "Well, I'll be up for a while. Feel free to hang out. Do we have any raw meats?" Izuka asked suddenly. Dabi looked at her oddly. "Not right now. But I can always ask Obaro to pick some up." Izuka nodded. "That would be great. Thanks, Oni-san." The two sat in silence for a while. Eventually, Dabi felt a weight on his side. It was Izuka. She had fallen asleep. The blanket she was wrapped in had loosened, and the hood she fashioned out of it fell down, revealing her face. "What the?" Dabi stared at Izuka, before smiling and planting a kiss on her forehead. "Sleep well, Izuka." The next day, Izuka was in a corner. The windows were open, and she was trying to avoid them. "Sorry. The light hurts my eyes." She had rewrapped herself in the blanket and covered her face up. She sat in the corner for a large part of the day. Not many people noticed her at first. Then, Kurogiri brought in some raw beef. Izuka pretty much lunged for the meat as soon as Kurogiri walked through a warp gate. As soon as he was through, there was a gust of wind, and Izuka was gone. "What was don't?" Dabi shook his head. "Just don't, for now." Toga found Izuka in her dark room, munching on bits of the raw beef, and looking at her computer screen, which had been dimmed down quite a bit. She let the girl be for the time being. Izuka's ears twitched as she heard her door click shut. She finished off her treat and washed her hands, before going to her new closet. In her closet was a small case that held her mother's old nightgown. Izuka slipped it on and crawled into her bed. It was the first time she cried herself to sleep in years. Chapter 53, Villain with a Heart of Gold. Author's note: alright. I guess I have some explaining to do. First off, the Camino incident. I could have made it a lot more gruesome. I want to keep this T-rated. I know I'm towing the line at this point, so I dialed back the gore and descriptions. So, if you want a better explanation of what went on, here you go. Midnight ended up getting violated by several citizens, which is why she won't show her face. I haven't gotten into much of Midnight's scenes, but they will happen. And the thing is, I actually cannot put that in this story. I can say that it happened, but I cannot describe the scene, nor do I want to. As for All Might, Toshinori was ripped apart by Izuka and healed in front of the entire world. She ripped off his limbs and forced him to regrow them. She literally broke the man so many times that he shouldn't be able to function. I also haven't written many of the scenes for Toshinori afterwards, so I haven't explained all of the issues that came with being continuously ripped apart and rebuilt for 5 hours. Bakugo was traumatized, because he got to see Toshinori's torture in HD. Woo? Please give me a little bit of slack. It's only been one chapter, and I haven't been able to explain everything. As far as the heroes, I didn't specify how many heroes ended up dying. Overall, the total death count was 173. Including Ifo it's 174. And including the Namus, it's in the 500s. Top 10 pros didn't really suffer. I haven't explained what happened to Best Jeanist yet. And again, I haven't really explained All Might and all of his issues. So, as far as Izuka. Yes, the evolution is based a little bit off of Rimuru. And Izuka will get to be more powerful. Just bear with me please. It was midnight at the dorms. It had been 1 month since Camino. The students worked on super moves for their classes. Now, everybody was in bed. Everybody except Nimri Kayama. Midnight sat in her housing unit and shook. She had had another nightmare. She had been knocked out during the battle, but there were still snippets where she woke up. Pain. As those snippets of memory came back to her, she only felt pain. And now, the faces of her fans haunted her in her dreams. She was right. Midnight tried to focus on something else. She attempted to make food, but burned it as she had a panic attack. She tried to exercise, but screamed and retreated to a corner as a vision of one of her fans taunted her. The hero tried to do everything she could think of, but her visions prevented her from doing anything but hiding in different parts of her living space. For several weeks, Midnight's door had remained locked, and she didn't interact with anybody. She stayed locked within her room. Until now. Kayama opened the door and proceeded to sneak down to the common room. From there, she walked to the main building, and went to her office. The office that was now being used by Kamui Woods. Well, Nezu did get a good replacement for me. Kayama muttered. She was dressed more modestly than ever in her entire life. Hidden in one of her drawers was a small notepad covered with phone numbers. I need to know. How does she know? Izuka froze as a ringtone came from her desk. It was her normal phone. The one she used for What are they doing? Calling to rub it in my face. Who would call that phone? Izuka grabbed the phone and answered. Who are you? What do you want? Are you heroes here to rub it in my face more? Huh? A soft voice whispered over the phone. Izuka. It's you, right? Izuka recognized the voice. Midnight. Can we meet? I know a place. Izuka growled. I don't want to see any heroes. This isn't meeting with a hero, it's a meeting with the woman who needs some guidance. Izuka was silent. Hello? Hello? Takoba Municipal Beach Park. 1 hour. If I see any heroes there other than you, you're dead. Izuka hung up. She immediately walked to her closet and put her mother's nightgown away. She pulled on short jean, shorts, a white shirt and a black hoodie. She peeked out of her room to see that everybody else was asleep. Okay. Izuka snuck out of the building. The first thing she noticed was that this building was on a small island. She could see the coast of Japan not that far away. But how do I get there? Izuka looked down at her hands, which buzzed with energy. Alright then. Let's try this out. Izuka took on a running position. Her form flickered. Motes of black drifted away from her skin, and she took off. Izuka had instantly reached the proper velocity to run on water. She could perceive everything around her easily as she sped towards the coast. Faster. Way faster. Izuka arrived on the shore in seconds. She immediately observed her surroundings. I'm not familiar with this part of Japan. I should disguise myself. Izuka grabbed a mask out of her pocket and put it on. Glad I never leave home without one. Izuka quickly found that she was in the rapidly reconstructed portion of Camino. She grit her teeth at the large statue of All Might that dominated the square. That fake. Izuka turned her back on the statue and walked down a dimly lit street. She eventually made it to the train station. Izuka leapt up onto the tracks and began running. She knew the train schedule, and even if she hit a train, it would hurt civilians, not her. In a short amount of time, Izuka made it to Mujutafu. She hopped off of the train tracks and into the city. Izuka spent a bit of time looking around, and eventually found her old school. A couple of teens stood outside it, smoking weed. Do you even remember? It's been like a year. Izuka recognized them from her old class. They were two kids that had actually been nice to her. Izuka walked up behind them. Can I get a hit? The two turned around and saw Izuka. Who are you? My name isn't important. Izuka said. Shenand. You're the one transfer student. Arthur. How do you know our names? Izuka sighed and pulled her mask down. SHHH. Don't speak. Izuka? Girl, I thought you left Japan. Arthur grinned. You certainly kicked All Might's ass. Kinda scary, but hey, if I die, I deserve it. Did you two end up going into hero studies? Izuka asked. Shen shook his head. No. We went into quirk studies. We wanted to learn more about the science, to honor you after. Well. Your disappearance. Thanks. Well. I hope you two have a good time. Izuka put her mask back. Carry on with your evening. I don't want to get you into trouble. You kidding? If we were caught, we'd be in trouble as is. Hey. Izuka chuckled. Just. Have a good night. Izuka walked away from Uldra, and walked silently to Takoba Municipal Beach Park. On the shore, she spotted a figure in a trench coat and sunglasses, her black hair pulled up into a bun. Is that you, Midnight? Izuka approached the woman. Kayama turned to Izuka. Yes. Thanks for meeting with me. You were a teacher who cared. Izuka said. What do you want to talk about? Walk with me. The two walked across the shoreline. You were right. My hero title means nothing to people. I'm sorry. Izuka said. It's fine. It took me long enough to realize. The pro-hero sniffed. So. Why come to me? I don't know. I've changed since the battle. I don't think I want to be a hero anymore. So. You come to me? Do you want to become one of my allies? Izuka raised her eyebrow. I don't know. My hero mantle has been tarnished, not that it held any meaning to begin with. I don't want that to happen to anybody else, but with the way things are right now, I'm afraid that it will. Change needs to happen. It needed to happen a long time ago. Izuka said. Kayama nodded. Yes. It did. So. A villain. I'll stay at A for now. But I'll be an ally. Someone to talk to. Maybe you can be someone for me to talk to as well. Midnight. I don't remember much after I saw my father die. What happened to you? Izuka asked. Kayama shivered. I if you don't want to talk about it. It's fine, Kayama bit her lip. You were right, Izuka. They were monsters. Izuka's face fell. They didn't. Kayama nodded, before bursting into tears. Izuka hugged her tightly. Midnight. I am so sorry. Kayama broke. In all the time that she had been suffering, almost nobody came to see her. When they did, it was only to bring groceries or food if the students ordered out to eat. Nobody had tried to comfort her, they just left her to sort it out on her own. Hey. It's okay. Izuka held the woman closely. It's okay. Toshinori sat in his room. A quiet beep alerted him to take his medicine. He rolled over to his counter and opened a small medicine cabinet. Recovery Girl had prescribed Toshinori with medications for several mental disorders. It had happened after he was cleared for the wheelchair. Toshinori had heard a scream and had flashbacks. Even though he couldn't use one for all completely, he was still linked to it. His existing arm had buffed up and he began throwing punches to try and defend himself. On top of that, there were voices that just wouldn't go away. Toshinori was plagued by shadows of All for One and the League of Villains. Izuka most of all. A vision of the girl was always beside him, no matter what he tried to do. No matter what decisions he made, she whispered doubts in his ear. When taking medications for schizophrenia, the other visions disappeared, but not her. At night, she would scream at him. And even now, she stood next to him. You know that I won't go away. You aren't real. Your body begs to differ. I mean this version of you. Toshinori turned around and wheeled through the girl. Well, that was rude. The vision chuckled. So? You destroyed me. I was getting payback. I know. Toshinori sighed. I won't ever be able to atone for what happened. You mean this? The vision shrank into a younger version of Izuka, who opened the window and leapt out. Stop taunting me. The vision laughed as Toshinori wheeled himself to his living room. You should have seen the look on your face. Stop taunting me, damn it. Toshinori shouted. The vision of Izuka smirked and sat down in a chair. Recovery Girl walked into the living space. What are you shouting about? Did you take your medicine? Toshinori nodded. Yeah. Thanks for checking up on me, Joe. Recovery Girl nodded and left the room. Izuka's apparition chuckled in the chair. Oh, poor Toshinori. You can't do anything, can you? The symbol of peace, now look at you. Toshinori grabbed the vision by the neck with his prosthetic arm. I said. Stop taunting me. I'll kill you. Silly Toshinori, heroes don't kill. The vision turned into mist. Toshinori heard the one last sentence. And I'm not really here. That's terrible. Kayama and Izuka sat on a bench that looked out over the water. Kayama had explained what had been going on. The worst part isn't the visions. It's the fact that I don't remember who did it, and the doctor. The doctor. Izuka said. Kayama nodded. The first thing he said to me when I got up. The way I found out. There's no signs of pregnancy. I'm so sorry. Izuka said. Kayama placed a head on the girl's shoulder as Izuka wrapped her arm around her. This is a little intimate, don't you think? Kayama chuckled. It's fine. For once, I don't see them. The shadows. Izuka rubbed Kayama's shoulder. I'm fine with you being an ally. Maybe even joining the vanguard. You were one of the better teachers. I'd hate to end up killing you. Midnight sighed on her shoulder. Thanks for meeting with me. You're a villain with a heart of gold. Izuka chuckled. No. I'm just a girl who's had it rougher than most. Izuka heard a voice call from the sidewalk. Hey look. It's Midnight. Did you see what happened to her on the news? Yeah man. Always knew it would happen though, with that costume she was begging for it. Izuka felt Kayama curl up. Do you want to go back now? Kayama nodded. Okay. Izuka lowered her mask and kissed the woman on the cheek. Welcome to the family. If you ever need me, use this number. Izuka handed Kayama a number for a substitute phone, so nobody would know who she was calling. Thank you. No problem. Welcome to the family. Kayama stood up and walked off of the beach. She ignored the comments made by the two people that taunted her as she passed. Kayama made it all the way back to her living space without anybody else saying anything. The pro hero saved the number to her phone as Little Demon. Meanwhile, the two assholes who had taunted Midnight thought they were very funny. They laughed as they walked down the sidewalk. Izuka walked up to them, her face covered. You think you're funny? Shut up bitch. She had it coming for a while. One of them laughed. I wish I could have felt that. Midnight is everything I search for in a woman. You're both vile. Izuka snarled. Oh yeah? And what are you gonna do? One smirked. Izuka lowered her hood and removed her face mask. The two backed away in fear. I'm going to make sure that you two don't live to experience a relationship. The two were dead before they could scream. Toga woke up and went to check on Izuka. The girl was sitting in her room, on her laptop. She wore an oversized hoodie. Her hair drifted down over her scarred eye. Her pointed ears twitched as she heard Toga walk in. You're up early. I had someone to meet last night. Izuka said. Haven't slept. Who did you meet? Toga raised an eyebrow. Midnight. You met with a hero? Toga. I knocked her out, then left her in the rubble, to defend you guys. Then, when I was raging, she was taken advantage of. Toga growled, understanding the situation. Who some of her fans? She can't really remember, because she was unconscious. I don't really trust the heroes, but Midnight was one of the good teachers. She reached out to me. Toga nodded. Okay. Will she join us? Eventually. Have we made a meeting time for Overhaul? Toga shook her head. Not yet. Shigaraki wants you to be a part of it. Izuka nodded. I'll be out in a little bit. Make sure it's dark. My eyes aren't good in bright light. Toga planted a kiss on Izuka's cheek. I'll tell them. The blonde girl left the room. Izuka sighed and looked at the computer screen. Let's see. Where can we go? Jigaku sat in the shadows of the alleyway. They were looking at his phone, which they had acquired by repairing one that somebody threw away. Displayed on their screen was a picture of Izuka Midoriya, tears streaming down her face as she ripped the symbol of peace apart. They were dressed in an oversized sweatshirt, which was rolled up so they could use their hands. The hood draped over their head, two bumps could be seen at the top. The child ducked as they heard footsteps. They had been adopted by a couple who appeared to be very nice, but when they got home, he realized how wicked they were. It turned out that the couple had been looking for kids with villainous quirks to turn into servants. They weren't into that. Their first thought was to go back to the orphanage, but then they realized that the orphanage was in Hazo. They were in Camino. So, they ran away and began living on the streets. They kept an eye out for Big Sis Toga, but they never saw her. It had been roughly a month since they escaped. One of their captors was severely injured in the Camino incident, so while the other went to check on them, Oritsu gathered up some belongings, stole some money, and left. The child had been on the street ever since. They had turned 6 3 days ago. Even though they were a child, they were highly intelligent. Oritsu peeked out of their hiding place to see a man with brown hair. His muscles were large. His eyes were red. All in all, he looked to be physically fit. A perfect snack. The child threw a knife at the man, intending for it to miss. The man watched the knife whiz by and turned. Their eyes fell on the child. Hello there, small fry. Now I know you weren't trying to attack me. Oritsu threw another knife. The man charged at the child. Both tumbled into the alleyway. The small child leapt back, their maroon eyes glinted. "Nobody attacks me, least of all little street urchins." The man swung his fist at Oritsu, who flipped back. The child leapt forward from the wall of the alleyway, their clawed hands aimed at the man's throat. The man moved to the side, but was still cut on the arm. "Little demon. You drew some blood." Oritsu giggled. "Yes. Blood. What are you? Crazy?" the man shouted, rushing in again. "Yes. Demon." The child licked their fingers, tasting the man's blood. Their form rippled, and they caught the first attack. "The hell? What the hell are you?" Oritsu locked eyes with their prey. Their hood fell off, revealing white hair, black antlers, maroon eyes, and a fanged grin. "Demon!" the man screamed in terror. Oritsu stabbed a hand through the man's chest, killing him instantly. Strong blood. The demon ripped into the body. After 10 minutes, the dead man was completely gone. "Guess I should leave." Izuka stepped out into the dimly lit room. She still kept herself covered. Only Tamura, Toga, and Abi had seen her face since Camino. "So, we need to talk about Overhaul," Izuka said. Tamura nodded. "He wants to meet 1 week from now." "Where?" Izuka asked. "Outside of Hazo? A warehouse he owns." Izuka nodded. "Fine. When we meet, we must act as if we are weak. Let him believe we are incompetent, then, we'll take what he owns when he inevitably falls." "You don't want him?" Tamura raised an eyebrow. "There are rumors. A child with white hair. She's been sighted around Overhaul's base, and yes, I know where it is. He's been using her as a lab experiment." Tetsutetsu grit his teeth. "That's monstrous. Even I have morals, that's plain evil," Toga said. Tamura nodded. "Then we will make certain that he falls." Izuka nodded. "Okay then. 1 week from now, we meet the 8 precepts of death. Be at your best, look unassuming. Make sure that we are on Overhaul's good side." Everybody nodded along with Izuka. "And then, we crush him." Chapter 54, Betrayal and a Meeting. The buses pulled up to the location of the licensing exams. The students of Class 1E remained silent as other students got off of their respective buses. Shiketsu High, Ketsubutsu Academy, etc. Aizawa went, wide-eyed and ducked as a cheerful woman with mint green hair walked by. The class stayed silent and got off of the bus with steeled faces. Leading them was Bakugo, Kirishima, Ochako, Todoroki, Mina, Jiro, and Kaminari. Tsu and Ida were behind them, followed by the rest of the class. "Okay. I know that we've seen a lot, and that I'm kind of a downer, but seriously. You guys are making me worry, with those faces." Aizawa scratched his head. "Sorry, we were just getting mentally prepared," Ochako said, before smiling. "There. All good. Let's do this." Kirishima grinned. "Fired up and ready to go." Shoto smirked. "They won't know what hit him," Mina said. "I'm charged up," Kaminari said. Every student gave some sort of witty comment, before walking into the test building. As they walked in, heads turned and regarded them cautiously. "Ueha. They look tough. Don't let your guard down." Bakugo rolled his eyes and continued, the rest of the class followed. As they walked, nobody noticed that Mina herself was studying Bakugo. At the camp, Yumi was Izuka. "I knew those scars looked familiar, it's because he gave them to her. No wonder she has it out for him." "Hey look. It's up." A few students in black uniforms walked up to the class. They were led by a very large student with a permanent grin. "How are you?" Bakugo looked at them. "Shiketsu High, right? We're doing fine. How about you?" "Great." Kirishima chuckled at the overexcited boy. "Hey man. What's your name?" "I'm Inasa Yoroshi." The boy shouted. "Come on everybody, they're about to start. You need to get changed. Aizawa grumbled. All right. Ochako smiled. Inasa, we hope to have a good time with you out there. The boy was taken aback by the bubbly girl. He was even more taken aback when each of the students gave him a fist bump, including Shitoto Toraki. I remember you from the recommendation exams. I'm sorry for being a jerk. Inasa held on to Totoraki's hand and studied his face carefully, before wrapping him in a hug. Shitoto Toraki. I was wrong about you. Apology accepted. Shito grinned. Right. Now let's do our best. And so, Class 1A changed into their hero outfits, and went to the starting site. The overtired proctor explained the rules. All of Class 1A had the same thought. Is he related to Aizawa? Alright, if you have your targets placed, and you have your 2 capture devices, we'll begin in 2 minutes. You have that time to find a place to get situated. The walls of the room the students were in fell away, revealing a massive area filled with mountains, abandoned buildings, any type of environment one could think of. It was like the USJ, only bigger. Come on Katsuki, we should get going. Kirishima said. Bakugo shook his head. It won't matter. Study the area around us, we'll wait for them. Why? You don't get it, do you? They know us the best. They saw our quirks in action. The sports festival. Jiro muttered. Of course. Bakugo nodded. We need any advantage we can get, so study the area around us, and we can prepare. Right. The class all scouted around, before quickly returning to the starting zone. We've got 10 seconds. Bakugo said. Get ready. Up in the spectators' seats, Aizawa rolled his eyes. Miss Joke laughed hysterically and sat down next to him. Finally found you. Hey, Aizawa. HMMPH. Marry me? Aizawa turned around. You know I'm already married. That joke sucks. Oh come on Aizawa. Live a little. What are you doing here? Aizawa grumbled. The hero sighed. Fine. You're no fun. I'm here with my class from Katsubatsu. I didn't know you were a teacher. Recent development, but hey. I'm here. That's just great. So Eraser, I noticed that your students began scouting the area. Did you tell them? Why would I? Aizawa said. Miss Joke chuckled. You must really hate them then. On the contrary, I respect them enough to think they don't need a warning. Miss Joke raised her eyebrows. High praise, Eraser. But do you really think they can compete against the other hero schools in the country? Aizawa scoffed. Just watch. They'll blow you away. A horn sounded, the exam had begun. Miss Joke looked down at Class 1A. She could see her students, along with several hundred others, closing in. Every year it's the same. The students all team up. Is immediately crushed. You don't want to warn them against that? Fine. You've laid them to rest. Every student leapt out at Class 1A. Each held their capture devices, and prepared to throw. All right. Now. Bakugo shouted. Totoraki rocketed into the air, covered in blood-red fire. Jiro placed her hands on the ground. Kaminari rubbed his hands together gleefully. Ochako brought her hands together and pulled them apart, making a black hole. Team attack. Gods of heaven and earth. Ochako whipped the black hole around, pulling the other students inward. When they were in range, Kaminari released a blast of electricity. Jiro flexed her hands and caused an earthquake, jumbling the students around. Totoraki lit up the sky, before sending a wave of ice to stick the students to the ground. What the hell was that? Miss Joke was wide-eyed, Aizawa smirked. That was my class. I hope you enjoyed the exam. You'll be coming back with your class next year. Most of Class 1A made the 2-person requirement before students broke out. Bakugo and his friends let their classmates get first dibs. We can get more points easily. You guys continue. Thanks. So now, All of the students who weren't knocked out broke free of the ice and ran. Bakugo popped a few explosions. Let's do this. Bakugo took off with his friends. Mina followed closely with a glare. Izuka took a deep breath and walked to her closet. We meet Overhaul today. Izuka looked through her clothes and eventually settled on an outfit. Izuka pulled on a bartender's outfit and a black mask. She covered her ears up with her hair. I don't want people to see. Why? Izuka turned around to see the ghosts of her parents sitting together on her bed. Mom? Dad? Hello, sweetie. All for one said. I told you that I'd watch over you. Izuka sniffed and wiped tears from her eyes. Thank you. Izuka. Wear your new looks with pride. You are more than human now. Keep going, for us. Izuka nodded. I will. I will. Mina watched as Bakugo helped his friends get points. It was now only her, Bakugo, Kirishima, Ochako, and Todoroki. Each of them only needed one more capture to pass. Damn. I don't see any more people. Kirishima grunted. Mina slowly reached behind her and unbuckled a capture device at Bakugo. I do. Really? Where? Look up there. Everybody turned to look up at a small hill. Mina dove at Bakugo. The blonde spun out of the way. What the hell? Mina stood up, her face darkened. The thing is, they never said we couldn't attack classmates. Bakugo shoved everybody away. Go, find other points. I'll stop her. I'm not leaving you, Katsuki. Kirishima said. Kirishima's right. We stick together. Shoto nodded. Mina slowly approached Katsuki, orb in hand. I've been meaning to ask you some things, Bakugo. Bakugo lunged at Mina, who easily sidestepped. The pink girl attempted to hit one of his targets, but Bakugo maneuvered out of the way. What the hell is wrong with her? Mina. Snap out of it. Kirishima grabbed the pink girl by the shoulders. Mina glared at the redhead. Get off of me, Kirishima. I can't do that. If you don't get off of me, I'll melt your hand off. This is between me and Bakugo. Kirishima narrowed his eyes. Who are you? Mina grabbed Kirishima's hand and pushed him off of her. You think that I wouldn't be angry sometimes? Is that the case? I heard what Himiko Toga told Ochako. Ochako told me herself. So you think you don't know me? I don't even know you. Kirishima shuddered. What happened, Mina? I wanted answers. And that blonde bitch is gonna give them to me. Mina rushed towards Bakugo, who attempted to restrain her with black whip. The girl coated herself in acid and slipped through the quirk. Mina flipped over Katsuki and attempted to hit a target, but the boy sidestepped. You see, Bakugo hasn't told us the whole story about Izuka. See, she infiltrated a, sure? She's a villain, sure? But did you ever think of why? She was petty. Todoroki said. She couldn't take no for an answer. Mina looked at Todoroki. Is that really what you think? Let me tell you something. Ochako, I'm sure you remember the hot springs at the training camp. Ochako nodded. I do. Remember when we saw her there? Mina asked. Yeah. I do. Ochako said. She was covered in scars. From blades, rocks, everything. Mina nodded, before turning back to Bakugo. You see, what stood out to me was a specific set of scars. They were mostly visible on her arms. There were also some on her back, and one on her inner thigh. Bakugo went wide-eyed. Don't tell me. These scars were very familiar. Yaozu has one on her shoulder from the sports festival. They're handprints, from a certain quirk-dubbed explosion. Bakugo grit his teeth. Yeah? And? The thing is, Izuka had so many. She grew up, with you bullying her. You used your quirk on her when you beat her, didn't you? And what if I did? That's all the information I needed. Mina rushed forward on a wave of acid. Bakugo could only dodge as Mina whirled around him in a frenzy. Mina. Stop it. Is that what she asked you? To stop it, Bakugo. Bakugo bit his lip and continued to dodge. I can't fight her. Katsuki. You have to beat her. Bakugo grit his teeth. They're right, but come on, Bakugo. Fight back. Or are you finally facing the consequences now? Bakugo grit his teeth. Fine, Mina. Lightning burst around Bakugo. The boy took off. Mina dodged Black Whip whenever Bakugo used it. His only other option was to use Explosion. Mina. You need to calm down. Bakugo said. I don't want to hurt you. Shut the hell up. Mina said. You already have. The two exchanged blows until Mina was thrown forward. Bakugo took the chance and opted to hit her with Explosion. Mina ducked into the blast. Bakugo's quirk enveloped Mina's head, and she was sent flying. Shit. Bakugo ran to check on Mina. After checking her, he came to the conclusion that she was just unconscious. Should we take her out or Ochako? You do it. You can carry her back. She'll fail the exam, but she needs to be checked by a nurse. Ochako nodded and pressed Mina's targets. Her targets turned green and Mina's turned red. Ochako touched her fingers to the pink girl and began carrying her back to the stadium waiting room. 3 hours later the exam was over. All of Class 1A passed, except for Mina. The girl was still recovering from her fight with Bakugo. Aizawa had called a teacher to pick her up. Midnight ended up showing her face for the pink student. Aizawa glared at anyone he heard making a comment about her. As the students headed back on the bus, Mina was already back at the campus. Midnight had brought her into her living space. Are you okay, Mina? No response. Mina? Mina just sat still, staring out of a window. Midnight went over and tapped her shoulder. Hey, Mina? Huh? Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you. But I was shouting. Wait a minute, don't tell me. Mina. Can you hear me? Mina blinked. Huh? Are you playing a prank, Midnight? It isn't funny. Midnight hugged Mina closely. Mina went wide-eyed as she realized she was now deaf. Izuka stepped out into the large warehouse. Shigaraki stood with the vanguard in front of her. Overhaul was sitting on a couch with a coffee table in front of it. He hadn't noticed Izuka's arrival. So. Tamura Shigaraki. We meet at last. Hello, Overhaul. Tamura sat down in front of him. You contacted us. What do you want? Overhaul chuckled. I want you to help me. You see, the League has fallen, All for One has died. That's because you couldn't use what you had, properly. Izuka grit her teeth. Overhaul still didn't notice her. You had Stain at your disposal. The Pyromancer too. Heck, you even got Mirko on your side, but you still failed. It's because the rest of you are too weak. Weak? Magn rushed Overhaul. I'll show you weak. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Magn was fine. Izuka was between both Overhaul and her friend, two sword handles in her hands. Her blades had been destroyed by Overhaul's quirk. And who might you be? Izuka chuckled and removed her mask. You know who I am. I didn't hear my name mentioned on your list of strong assets. You see, Overhaul, we have a diversity in the League. A lot of us are still shaken from the fight at Camino. If you chose to use lethal force against one of my comrades. Izuka's eye sparked with malice. I will do the same thing I did to All Might. Overhaul shivered. My apologies. I meant no disrespect. We'd like to hire you. Izuka smirked. Good. We need something to do. What would you like us to do? Overhaul sat back down on the couch and pulled out a small metal case. In here are bullets which I have refined. There are only 10 perfect ones currently. They will take away a person's quirk completely, if used. We are going to be beginning the stages of mass production, but there are heroes moving around. They're disrupting my plans. I can't have that, so I need your protection. Izuka nodded. How many of us do you need? I want all of you to work under me. The arrogance. Izuka gritted her teeth. Sorry, But that won't happen. I work for nobody but myself. Stain and Dabi are my friends, as well as Mirko. Tamura here is like a brother to me. We're all family. Izuka sat down next to Tamura. Not all of us are as strong as All Might. Even then, Magn lost her cool and attacked you, she would have been dead. But I suggest that you respect me, and those who you have listed. If we are to be allies, even if you see us as less powerful than you still must give us a certain amount of respect. Overhaul nodded. Okay then. 2 of you should be enough. Twice, Toga. Are you up for the task? Toga and Twice nodded. These 2 will report to me if anything happens. If heroes attack, I will be there to offer my aid. Thank you. You believe that they will be strong enough? I know so. Treat them well, please. Izuka smiled. I think this is the start of a great partnership. The 2 groups discussed a bit more. Eventually, they parted ways. Overhaul had one thought as he left the warehouse. Izuka Midoriya. You may be strong, but I will kill you, and your weak league of villains. Izuka watched the man leave and looked down at the sword handles in her hands, memories flashing through her. I love these swords. Compress, save the handles. I will restore them soon. Yes ma'am. Compress took the handles and turned them into a marble. Now then, Izuka smirked. I'm gonna go blow off some steam tonight. Toga's eyes sparkled at Izuka's grin. Anybody want in? Author's note so. There's some ideas for Mina. I am making her completely deaf. She'll join Izuka soon. Her character is one that I happen to really like. I hope I can make her one of the incredible characters. I mean, having a deaf badass would be awesome. So I think that's what's going to happen. No scenes from Jigaku today. But they will be in there. Maybe next chapter, Izuka will find them. Okay. Until